Good morning, champions of growth. Today I want to share something powerful with you. 4 simple yet life-changing morning rituals that Jim Rohn practiced, which became the foundation of his legendary success. Jim Rohn wasn't just a motivational speaker. He was a man who transformed ordinary disciplines into extraordinary results. And if you want to think like Jim Rohn, if you want to live with the same clarity, energy, and purpose, these rituals can ignite your mornings and set the tone for your entire life. When the sun rises, the world begins to move. Alarms ring, cars rush, phones buzz, and people instantly jump into the chaos of the day. For many, the morning is nothing more than a frantic race, a scramble to get dressed, check messages, eat something on the go, and dive into work. But Jim Rohn, one of the greatest teachers of personal development, understood something far deeper, that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts, and the best time to master your thoughts is in the quiet of the morning. Jim believed in beginning each day with quiet reflection, a time to step away from noise, away from distractions, and into a space of peace and clarity. This was not just about silence, it was about creation. It was about designing the inner atmosphere before facing the outer world. He often said, "Stand guard at the door of your mind," and that idea became central to his philosophy. Why? Because what enters your mind in the morning sets the tone for the hours that follow. Think about it. Most people open their eyes and immediately reach for their phones. Before their feet even touch the ground, they are swallowed up by notifications, emails, social media, and other people's demands. They begin their day already in reaction mode, chasing the world instead of leading themselves. By the time they're dressed and out the door, their peace is gone. They are drained before the day has even started. Jim Rohn did the opposite. He began his day with reflection. He took time to think, to breathe, to sit in silence, and to connect with himself. This wasn't wasted time, it was invested time. Because in that stillness he found clarity. In that stillness he found direction. In that stillness he built the foundation for a day of purpose. Now you might ask, what does reflection really mean? It doesn't mean doing nothing. Reflection is active thinking. It is a conscious choice to pause and consider, where am I in life? What am I grateful for? What do I want today to stand for? How can I show up as my best self? It is designing the script before the play begins. It is rehearsing the character you want to be before the world gives you a role to play. Jim often compared reflection to gardening. If you want flowers to grow, you must pull the weeds. Similarly, if you want a day of peace and productivity, you must pull out the weeds of worry, fear, and negativity before they spread through your thoughts. And that pulling happens best in the morning, when your mind is still fresh, open, and impressionable. Reflection is like tending to the soil of your mind, preparing it for the seeds of action that will be planted throughout the day. Imagine this. You wake up, sit quietly for 10 minutes, and focus on your breathing. You let go of yesterday's stress. You ask yourself, what truly matters today? What can I let go of? What deserves my attention? That small act creates an entirely different energy. You are no longer running blindly. You are moving with intention, and intention changes everything. Jim Rohn believed that in quiet reflection, you can find wisdom that is otherwise drowned out by noise. The world constantly bombards us with voices. The news, social media, coworkers, advertisements. Everyone wants your attention. But when you step into silence, when you stop listening to the outside world, you finally hear the inside world. You hear your own thoughts. You hear your own values. You hear the whispers of intuition. And those whispers, if you listen, often guide you more powerfully than the loudest voices outside. Reflection is also the birthplace of gratitude. Jim often reminded us that success without appreciation is empty. In the stillness of morning, he would take time to remember the blessings of his life, the opportunities, the people, the lessons, even the challenges that shaped him. Gratitude is a lens that changes everything it touches. When you reflect with gratitude, problems shrink and possibilities expand. The world feels less like a burden and more like a gift. Now let me tell you why this ritual is more than just a nice idea. It is practical, Science today proves what Jim Rohn practiced decades ago. Studies show that starting your day with quiet reflection or meditation lowers stress, improves focus, boosts creativity, and strengthens emotional resilience. But Jim didn't need scientific studies to know this. He lived it. He experienced how a calm mind led to better decisions, better relationships, and better results. He understood that if you master the morning, you master the day. And if you master the day, you master your life. But here's the key: reflection must be intentional. It's not just about sitting quietly and letting random thoughts take over. It's about directing your thoughts. Jim often asked himself powerful questions during his reflection time. What did I learn yesterday? What am I grateful for today? Who do I need to become to achieve my goals? These questions sharpened his mind, kept him grounded, and aligned his daily actions with his long-term vision. Think of your mind like a river. If you don't direct it, it flows everywhere, often into unproductive or negative territory. But through reflection, you create channels. You guide your thoughts toward growth, toward gratitude, toward clarity. And over time, those channels become habits of thinking. That is how you transform not just your mornings, but your entire life. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine two people starting their day. The first person wakes up, checks their phone, gets annoyed by an email, scrolls through negative news, rushes out the door, and spends the rest of the day reacting to problems. The second person wakes up, sits quietly, reflects on their goals, feels grateful for the opportunity to live another day, and decides on one or two priorities that truly matter. Who do you think will have a more successful, fulfilling day? The answer is obvious. And the only difference is the ritual of reflection. Jim Rohn taught that success is not a secret. It is a system. Small disciplines, repeated daily, compound into greatness. Reflection is one of those small disciplines. It doesn't require money. It doesn't require special equipment. It only requires the willingness to pause. And yet most people won't do it. Why? Because they underestimate its power. They think 10 minutes of silence won't change my life, but they forget that 10 minutes multiplied by years is not 10 minutes. It's thousands of hours of shaping your mind, directing your energy, and building your character. Here's the truth. Reflection is not about finding time, it's about making time. If you are too busy to reflect, then you are too busy to grow. And if you don't control your mornings will control you. Jim Rohn lived by a simple principle. Don't start your day until you have shaped it in your mind. That is what reflection does. It is not a luxury. It is the foundation of leadership, self-mastery, and success. It is how you choose who you will be, instead of letting the world decide for you. So tomorrow morning when you wake up, resist the urge to dive into the noise. Sit quietly, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Breathe. Think. Reflect. Ask yourself, who do I want to be today? What deserves my energy? What can I let go of? And as you practice this daily, you will notice a shift. Your days will feel lighter. Your mind will feel clearer. Your purpose will feel stronger. Because the truth is, life does not change when you move faster. Life changes when you move with clarity. And clarity is born in the stillness of reflection. Jim Rohn knew this. He practiced it. And his life became a testament to the power of beginning each day not with chaos, but with calm. If you want to think like Jim Rohn, if you want to build a life of discipline, success, and fulfillment, then start where he started. Each morning, in the quiet place of reflection. There you will find the strength to face challenges, the wisdom to make better choices, and the gratitude to enjoy the journey. And remember his words. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Reflection is the guard. Reflection is the shield. Reflection is the ritual that turns ordinary mornings into extraordinary beginnings. Jim Rohn often said that one of the greatest treasures of his life was his journals. Not his bank account, not his possessions, not even the trophies of success, but the notebooks he carried with him year after year. Why? Because those journals contained his thoughts, his lessons, his discoveries, and his journey. He believed that a disciplined journal is more valuable than gold because it holds the blueprint of your own growth. Most people go through life having experiences, but they let those experiences slip away. They hear something valuable in a conversation, but by the next week they've forgotten it. They stumble upon an idea, but without writing it down, it drifts off into the wind like it never existed. Jim would shake his head and say, "Don't trust your memory. Capture it, guard it, put it on paper." He knew that the human mind is powerful, but also forgetful. We are flooded with thousands of thoughts every day, and unless we capture the important ones, they vanish. That's why he made journaling a morning ritual, because he understood that recording life is just as important as living it. What does journaling really mean? It is more than writing random words on a page. It is a conversation with yourself. It is holding up a mirror and asking, who am I becoming? What did I learn yesterday? What am I grateful for today? What can I do differently tomorrow? In that sense, a journal becomes your most trusted mentor because it never lies back to you. It simply reflects your truth. Think about this. Life gives us lessons every single day. Some lessons are small, like noticing how your attitude changes when you smile. Some lessons are big, like realizing that the people you surround yourself with shape your destiny. But if you don't write these lessons down, how do you expect to remember them? How do you expect to use them? Jim Rohn built the habit of writing down lessons immediately. If he attended a seminar, he took notes. If he read a book, he captured ideas. If he had a meaningful conversation, he wrote the key insight. He wasn't willing to let life's wisdom slip through the cracks. And because of that discipline, he carried decades of knowledge, not just in his mind, but on his bookshelves. A journal is not only about recording lessons, it is also about designing the future. Jim would often write about his goals, his dreams, and his vision for the life he wanted to live. He said, "The future must be captured on paper." When you write down a goal, something remarkable happens. That goal becomes more than a thought. It becomes a commitment. It moves from your imagination into the physical world. A thought can disappear, but written words stare back at you, reminding you of what you said you would do. Journaling gives accountability to your own vision. But the beauty of journaling, Jim often explained, is not only found in the present moment, it's found in the years ahead. Imagine picking up a journal you wrote 10 years ago and reading your thoughts, your dreams, your struggles, your progress. Suddenly you see your own evolution. You see how far you've come. You see the wisdom you gained. And you realize that you've been writing the story of your own transformation. Most people don't have that gift because they never took the time to record their journey. They rely only on memory, and memory is like smoke. It fades, but paper preserves. Now let's talk about the practical power of journaling. In the morning, when your mind is clear and the day has not yet rushed in, journaling gives you focus. Instead of letting your thoughts scatter in 100 directions, you take a few minutes to write them down, organize them, and prioritize them. It's like cleaning your desk before you start working. You clear the clutter so you can concentrate. When Jim sat down with his journal in the morning, he wasn't just writing. He was preparing his mind to think better, decide better, and act better. Some people say, "I don't know what to write." Jim would answer, start with what you have. Write about what you're grateful for. Write about what you learned yesterday. Write about what you want today to look like. Write about the conversation you had that moved you. Write about the mistake you made and what it taught you. The content doesn't matter as much as the discipline, because over time, those pages add up. They reveal patterns about your life. They show you what you value, what you struggle with, what you consistently desire. And when you can see those patterns on paper, you gain the power to change them. Journaling is also an incredible tool for gratitude. Jim taught that gratitude is the beginning of wealth. When you write down the things you are thankful for each morning, you shift your perspective. Instead of starting the day with stress, you start with appreciation. Instead of seeing what you lack, you see what you have. Gratitude multiplies blessings, and writing them down anchors them in your heart. But there's another dimension of journaling: creativity. Jim often said that ideas are like sparks. They flash and disappear if you don't catch them. How many times have you had a brilliant idea in the shower, in the car, or during a conversation, only to forget it later? That is the tragedy of the unrecorded life. Ideas are the seeds of innovation, but only the captured seeds can grow into something useful. Jim's journals were filled with sparks that later became speeches, books, and lessons that changed millions of lives. You see, journaling is not only about personal growth, it is about contribution. When you capture your insights, you create a resource not just for yourself, but for others. Jim's journals became the foundation of his teachings. Without them, much of his wisdom would have been lost. In the same way, your journals could one day guide your children, your students, or anyone who looks to you for wisdom. Your thoughts are valuable, but only if you preserve them. Let's not forget the emotional power of journaling. Life is full of challenges. Sometimes you feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or lost. Writing is therapy. Putting your struggles on paper takes the weight off your mind. It gives you perspective. It transforms confusion into clarity. It turns pain into lessons. When you write about what you're going through, you begin to see solutions you couldn't see before. Journaling is not just about recording success, it is also about processing struggle. Now imagine this habit multiplied over years. 10 minutes a day doesn't sound like much, but over the course of a decade, that's thousands of entries. That's thousands of lessons, thousands of reflections, thousands of ideas. That is a personal library of wisdom that no one can ever take from you. Jim built that library for himself, and he encouraged everyone to do the same. He often said, "Be a collector of good ideas, and your journal is the collection box." The truth is, most people underestimate small habits. They think writing for a few minutes won't change anything, but they forget the law of accumulation. Little disciplines practiced every day compound into greatness. Journaling may seem like a small thing, but over time, it becomes a foundation for clarity, gratitude, creativity, and wisdom. So tomorrow morning, before the world demands your attention, take a notebook, open a blank page, and start writing. Don't worry about being perfect. Don't worry about grammar or style. Just write. Write what you feel. Write what you hope. Write what you've learned. Write what you want to remember. And keep writing. Day after day, page after page. Let your life speak through ink. One day you will look back at those pages and realize that journaling was not just about recording life, it was about shaping life. It was about turning thoughts into reality, lessons into wisdom, and experiences into a legacy. Jim Rohn's journals helped him become one of the greatest teachers of success, and your journals can do the same for you. Because the truth is this: success is not found in extraordinary moments. It is built through ordinary disciplines. And journaling, practiced daily, is one of those disciplines. It is a ritual that turns scattered thoughts into focused action, fleeting experiences into lasting wisdom, and simple mornings into a foundation for greatness. Jim Rohn believed that one of the greatest tragedies in life is that people stop learning after they finish school. They graduate, get a job, and then they let the formal education system be the last chapter of their growth. But Jim often reminded us, formal education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune. He knew that true wealth, whether financial, emotional, or spiritual, comes from a lifelong commitment to learning, and that's why he built learning into his mornings. Most people start their day with entertainment. They turn on the TV, scroll through their phones, or listen to gossip on the radio. But Jim chose to start with education. He treated his mind like his body. He believed that just as you feed your body with food every morning, you must feed your mind with wisdom. He used mornings to read books, study philosophy, or listen to recordings of great thinkers. To him, learning wasn't optional, it was survival. Think about it. Your mind is the most powerful tool you possess. It is the engine that drives every decision, every action, every result. But what happens if you neglect that engine? What happens if you never sharpen it, never fuel it, never challenge it? It begins to weaken. It begins to decay. Just as the body grows weaker without exercise, the mind grows weaker without learning. And a weak mind cannot build a strong life. Jim often asked a powerful question: what are you becoming? Because everything you consume is shaping you. Every book, every conversation, every idea, every influence. If you spend your mornings filling your mind with negativity, gossip, or trivial distractions, then you are shaping yourself into a distracted, unfocused person. But if you spend your mornings feeding your mind with wisdom, strategy, and inspiration, then you are shaping yourself into a leader. Learning is not just about collecting information, it is about becoming. He was a student of many things: economics, history, philosophy, psychology. He would pick up a book not because it was popular, but because it had the power to change perspective. He knew that one idea, one principle, one piece of wisdom could completely alter the direction of a person's life. And he didn't just read for the sake of reading, he read to apply. He would underline, take notes, and reflect on how the lessons applied to his own journey. He turned knowledge into action, and action into results. Now, some people say they don't have time to learn in the morning. They say, I'm too busy. But Jim would remind us that we all have the same 24 hours. The difference is how we use them. He often encouraged people to wake up just 30 minutes earlier and dedicate that time to reading or listening to something that would build the mind. 30 minutes a day may not sound like much, but over the course of a year, that's hundreds of hours of learning. And hundreds of hours will transform the way you think, the way you work, and the way you live. Learning also gives you an advantage in a world that is constantly changing. New technologies, new industries, new challenges are emerging every day. If you don't commit to learning, you fall behind. But if you make learning a ritual, you stay ahead. Jim understood that the marketplace rewards value, and value comes from knowledge and skills. He said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. That meant he never stopped improving. While others were coasting on what they already knew, he was building new abilities, new insights, new tools, and that's why he was able to rise above. But Jim didn't limit his learning to books. He learned from people. He sought out mentors. He asked questions. He listened carefully. He believed that everyone had something to teach. If you paid attention, he would sit with successful people and absorb their stories, their strategies, their mistakes. He would also observe those who failed and ask himself, what can I learn from their errors so I don't repeat them? In this way, his mornings were not only filled with pages, but also with reflections on the lessons of others. Learning also gave him a sense of humility. He recognized that no matter how much you know, there is always more to discover. The world is too vast, history too deep, and human experience too complex for anyone to claim mastery. That humility kept him hungry. It kept him curious. It kept him open to new ideas. And that hunger is what allowed him to grow year after year, while so many others plateaued. Let me ask you a question. What are you learning right now? What book is shaping your thinking? What skill are you developing? What mentor are you listening to? If the answer is nothing, then you are not standing still. You are falling behind. Because while you're standing still, the world is moving forward. Learning is not just for school years. Learning is the responsibility of a lifetime. Jim used to say that success leaves clues. And those clues are found in books, in lectures, in conversations with the wise. But you must go looking for them. You must be intentional about collecting them. Imagine walking through a field of diamonds, but never looking down. That's what life is like for those who ignore learning. The diamonds of wisdom are everywhere, but only those who search, study, and reflect will gather them. There's also another benefit to learning in the morning. It shapes your mindset for the entire day. If you begin your day reading a chapter of a great book or listening to an inspiring talk, you carry that energy into your work, your conversations, your decisions. It becomes the lens through which you see the world. A negative person might see obstacles, but a mind fed with wisdom sees opportunities. A tired person might see problems, but a mind fed with strategy sees solutions. Morning learning doesn't just fill your mind, it transforms your attitude. Jim Rohn often reminded us that you don't have to read a book a day to change your life. You just have to be consistent. Even 10 pages a day, if done every morning, will take you through dozens of books in a year. And those dozens of books can give you ideas that reshape your career, your relationships, your finances, and your character. Small, consistent learning beats occasional bursts of effort. The key is to make it a ritual, not a random act. Now here's something powerful. Learning doesn't just prepare you for the future, it also protects you from the past. Many people repeat the same mistakes because they never learn from them. They go through experiences but never extract the lessons. They suffer but never grow. Jim avoided that trap by treating every experience as a teacher and recording the lesson in his journals. He knew that the past, when studied, becomes fuel for the future. And let's not forget the joy of learning. Jim loved to learn not just because it made him successful, but because it made life richer. Knowledge opens doors of curiosity. It helps you appreciate art, history, culture, and human nature. It makes conversations deeper. It gives you perspective. Without learning, life becomes shallow and repetitive. With learning, life becomes expansive and meaningful. So imagine tomorrow morning, instead of scrolling through meaningless content, you pick up a book by a great thinker. You read a few pages. You underline a sentence. You think about how it applies to your life. That small act, repeated daily, will accumulate into wisdom that few ever achieve. Or perhaps you listen to an audiobook on leadership, or you study a new skill online. Whatever the form, the principle is the same. Feed your mind before the world feeds you distractions. Jim Rohn's success was not accidental. It was built on rituals, and one of his most powerful rituals was learning every morning. He understood that wealth, influence, and fulfillment all grow from the soil of knowledge. And knowledge grows only when you commit to watering it daily. So never let a day go by without feeding your mind. Never let the excuse of busyness rob you of growth. Remember Jim's words, if you want things to change, you have to change. If you want things to get better, you have to get better. And getting better begins with learning. Because in the end, your life will be shaped not by what you have, but by what you know and what you apply. Learning is the great equalizer. It takes the ordinary and makes it extraordinary. And if you build it into your mornings like Jim Rohn did, you will not only think differently, you will live differently. Jim Rohn used to say, "Don't start your day until you have finished it on paper." At first, that statement sounds strange. How can you finish a day before it even begins? But what he meant was simple. The day should be designed before it is lived. Planning is the act of creating the map before taking the journey. And for Jim, that was not just a casual suggestion, it was a ritual. Every morning he would sit down and deliberately think through what mattered, what needed to be done, and how he wanted to show up in the hours ahead. He believed that planning was the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. Most people wake up and drift into their day without direction. They let circumstances decide how their time is spent. They react to every phone call, every message, every distraction, until by the evening they are exhausted but uncertain of what they accomplished. It's like setting sail without a compass. You might move all day, but you'll end up somewhere you never wanted to be. Jim refused to live like that. He understood that if you don't plan your day, someone else will. If you don't decide your priorities, the world will hand you theirs. And that is why he made planning a morning discipline. Planning is not about filling every minute with activity. It's about identifying what truly matters. Jim would often begin by asking, what are the few things that if I do them today will make the biggest difference? Those few things became his focus. He believed that busyness was not the same as productivity. A person can be busy all day doing trivial tasks, but still be moving nowhere. But a person who identifies the right priorities and commits to them can achieve more in a few focused hours than others do in weeks. That's the beauty of planning. It forces you to choose. Without planning, your attention scatters across whatever comes your way. With planning, your attention is directed like a laser on what moves you forward. Jim often reminded people that life is too short to spend on meaningless activity. Success belongs to those who live by design, not by default. He also believed that planning created confidence. Think about the difference between two people starting their day. One wakes up, rushes through breakfast, checks emails, scrolls through the news, and then wonders what to do first. The other wakes up, sits with a notepad, writes down 3 priorities, and maps out a schedule. Which one will move with more confidence? Which one will feel less overwhelmed? It is obvious. Planning transforms chaos into clarity. It gives you a sense of control, and that control fuels energy. But Jim didn't only plan tasks. He planned character. He asked himself, how do I want to show up today? What attitude do I want to carry into my meetings? What kind of husband, father, or friend do I want to be today? Because life is not just about what we do. It is about who we are while we are doing it. Planning allowed him not only to shape his schedule, but also to shape his presence. Planning also teaches you discipline. It is one thing to write goals, but it is another to live by them. When you plan your day, you are making a promise to yourself. You are saying, this is what matters. This is what I will focus on. And when you keep that promise, you build trust with yourself. That self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Every time you follow through on your plan, you strengthen your character. Every time you abandon your plan, you weaken it. That is why Jim treated his daily plan not as a suggestion, but as a commitment. Now let's be clear. Plans don't always unfold perfectly. Life has its surprises, its interruptions, its emergencies. But Jim didn't believe that was a reason to avoid planning. He often said, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Planning is part of that discipline. Even if your plan gets interrupted, having one gives you something to return to. It's like a compass during a storm. It may not prevent the wind, but it keeps you oriented. Without a plan, you are easily blown off course. With a plan, you may bend, but you won't break. Another benefit of planning is that it helps you avoid regret. How many times have you reached the end of a day and thought, I was busy all day, but I didn't do anything meaningful? That regret accumulates over time, and before long, it turns into a life of wasted potential. But if you take a few minutes each morning to identify what truly matters, then you end your day with a sense of accomplishment. You can look back and say, I did what I set out to do. I moved closer to my goals. I lived on purpose. That sense of fulfillment is worth more than all the random busyness in the world. Jim often broke down planning into categories. He didn't just plan work. He planned growth, relationships, health, and contribution. Because life is not one-dimensional. Success in business means little if your health is failing. Wealth is empty if your relationships are broken. That's why his planning was holistic. He asked, what can I do today to advance my career? What can I do today to strengthen my health? What can I do today to nurture my family? What can I do today to expand my mind? That balance made his success sustainable. He didn't leave important areas of life to chance. He put them on paper. And here's something powerful. Planning is not only about what to do, it's also about what not to do. Jim was deliberate in eliminating distractions. He recognized that saying yes to one thing means saying no to another. If you don't plan, you end up saying yes to everything, which dilutes your energy. But if you plan, you can say no with confidence because you know what you've already chosen. Planning protects your time from being stolen by the trivial. Many people resist planning because they think it's boring or rigid. But Jim saw it differently. He believed planning gave freedom. It gave you the freedom to live with focus instead of confusion, to live with intention instead of reaction. A person without a plan is at the mercy of circumstances. A person with a plan creates circumstances. And that difference is everything. He would often remind people that success is built one day at a time. You cannot control the years, but you can control the day. And if you control enough days, the years take care of themselves. Planning is how you win the day before the day even starts. It is how you stack small victories until they become great achievements. Imagine what your life would look like if every day started with 10 minutes of deliberate planning. Imagine the clarity, the focus, the sense of accomplishment. Imagine how much less overwhelmed you would feel, how much more intentional your actions would become. Most people underestimate the power of small rituals, but Jim knew that small disciplines compound into extraordinary results. 10 minutes of planning today is not just 10 minutes, it is the foundation of a lifetime of achievement. Jim Rohn lived by this truth. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. Planning was one of those disciplines. It required no money, no special skills, only the willingness to pause and think before acting. And yet that simple act separated him from the masses who drifted aimlessly. So tomorrow morning, don't rush into your day. Sit down with a notebook. Write down what matters. Decide on your top priorities. Eliminate what doesn't belong. Map out your hours with intention. And as you do this consistently, you will notice a transformation. You will no longer feel like life is happening to you. You will feel like you are happening to life. Because the truth is, the future is not something you stumble into. It is something you plan for. And if you want to live like Jim Rohn, if you want to build a life of discipline, success, and meaning, then make planning your daily ritual. Finish your day on paper before you begin it in reality. That one discipline can turn ordinary days into extraordinary outcomes, and ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. Jim Rohn's life teaches us this. Success is not built in one day. It's built every day. And your morning rituals set the stage for everything that follows. So ask yourself, are you beginning your days with intention, or are you letting life decide for you? If you want to think like Jim Rohn, adopt these 4 rituals. Quiet reflection to center your mind. Journaling to capture your wisdom. Learning to feed your growth. Planning to design your day. Do this consistently, and your mornings will no longer be ordinary. They will be the launch pad of your success. Remember Jim Rohn's 6 words. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Let your mornings be those simple disciplines, and soon your life will speak the language of success.